how do you know when it's time to give up on a tool that's not working? Because sometimes in my world, you know, you and I were, it wasn't you, it was me struggling to get Zoom going so we could do this podcast interview. And
Yeah.
come across sometimes as technologically
Mhm.
savvy, and that's not me at all. So
Yeah.
sometimes I hold onto a tool for so long just because I refuse to try something else, or I would rather just not go through the hassle. When do you know it is
Yeah.
time to
It
chase
is
that
time.
new and
Hey.
shiny?
Yeah. So, again, it starts with your people, but then the second step of it is going to be your processes. So what are you currently doing? Like, what does your normal day look like? Are those processes outlined? So let's say, for example, just social media alone. Okay. I have, let's say, content that comes from the sermon series, from the sermon from that day, those little, pieces that I want to use in social media, those need to eventually become images or videos, and those eventually need to be scheduled. So I'm going to use a specific process to get this done. That means I need to listen to the sermon, collect that information, design them or create videos out of it, and then from there, schedule it. So that means in this process, how can I streamline it so I'm not constantly wasting time? Okay, so the first thing that we try to do is we have somebody listening to the sermon and is just typing in those tidbits. So that person is actually not even creating any design. That person is just looking for those little pieces and bits here and there. And that can be any volunteer, anybody. Just tell them, hey, listen to the sermon and write down things that are short. I mean, think tweet kind of materials, things that are short, and just write them down. That's all. So that's one person's task. And in that process, they don't need anything. They can just use, whatever tool, like, I don't know, Google
Right.
Drive, you name it, right? But then let's go to the design. Okay, so all of these things are created, and there will be another person that will be able to, and by the way, this could be the same person. I would just recommend, like, don't try to design as you're getting the information from the sermon. Separate the tasks so it's easier. So once the design is done, the text is available, start designing. So here you can see, okay, well, I can use Canva for, I don't know, anything that is graphic. Maybe there are some tools that I can use for video. And at this point, I need to assess, okay, how fast am I able to produce this material every week? How much time is it taking? And so get an idea of how much time you're actually spending just creating these images. Is there a way for me to then expedite it? I know, for example, you're launching a service to have videos done from your sermon. So
Right.
maybe instead of spending, I don't know, 8 hours, 5 hours trying to figure out a video software, it's probably going to be easier for you to outsource it. So there will be pieces where you're even going to see the time spent and the money spent is not worth it. And sometimes we forget, we think that, oh, I'm, it's just time, it's just my time, 8 hours. Well, somebody's paying for those 8 hours,
Right.
right? So somebody is paying for that. And if nobody is, your family will be, your health may be. So looking at those things, I need to see if I just observe my workload on a given week, I'm hoping that you have an idea where your time is going. And so one thing we do is look at, just take 1 week as an example. And as you're doing tasks, you write them down and you see, okay, hold on, I'm spending a solid 20 hours a week just on social media. What can I do? Is there a tool that can automate what I'm doing better than the one that I'm using? Do I need to outsource it? Do I need to delegate it? Or do I just need to stop doing this altogether? Sometimes we're stuck in tasks that are bringing no return, right?
Right.
But here's how I normally notice. I start to get upset or frustrated with the piece of software that I'm using far more than I normally would. I dread starting the task because I don't want to use that piece of software, or it's requiring too many little, copy from here, paste there, then import here, then transfer there. Then, I mean, every time you have a situation where you feel like there has to be a better way, that is normally a key or a red flag, I would say, to say, okay, I need to figure out, because if I'm having this struggle, other people are probably going through the same process. So there has to be something out there that has solved this problem. So in that moment, you can even look for a specific solution for that problem instead of just like, well, let me find a whole new tool,
Right.
you know? So sometimes it's just a process. Your process may be redundant or out of order. Let me give you one example.
Sure.
Sometimes we would do, I don't know, brochures, okay, for, I don't know, women's retreat. And we would start designing and everything was ready. And then at the end, we'd be like, okay, who's printing this? Oh, it's the printer such and such has the contact with that person. So we would call, and by the time we're calling them, they're like, oh, we don't have that size brochure. And we only accept InDesign files. And so now we're like, okay, we're going to have to redo this whole thing.
Right.
Now, knowing that that's the process, you can then start saying, okay, let's ask from the beginning, who's printing this? What's the format that they accept? What kind of templates they need us to use? And how are we supposed to submit the files at the end? So that becomes a place where you can look at your process and you can recognize, holy moly, I've been wasting all of this time. Once the piece was ready, that could have been completely avoided at the beginning, you know?